So, welcome to today's podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I truly appreciate you spending some time with me. This week's been a very interesting one at the time of recording. We're going through some interesting times with our son, who's a senior in college, and going through that seemingly painful exercise of their future, especially for the prospects of college, which can be a very daunting and emotional roller coaster of a journey, and it's amazing to go through. And obviously, it's I'm still in a little bit of a shock mode, thinking that my son, who's now taller and bigger than me, is going off on this next stage of his life, and then he's potentially going to college. And there's a lot to it. Anyone who's gone through it and or is going through it, you know what I'm talking about. It can be very painful, stressful, and hopefully it's something that turns out well for most people. And we've had different podcasts centered on thinking about college education, the educational system. And I'm not going to say in here and say it is for everybody. And so it is a journey to explore whether it's a good fit, and that's for another day. But what really struck me this week as we were going through the process and try to contemplate all the different sort of options and how to make a decision is what really can bog us down in anything in our lives is that we can look at all things because we want certainty. We're trying to make the right decisions, and I'm guilty of this all through my life in terms of trying to analyze every different option and go deeper in research. And you know what happens with these sorts of things. You can almost get paralyzed, and there's a term. Paralysis by analysis type of thing. And sometimes you're never going to know for certain if something is going to work but we want that at least for portions of our lives. And so this is the I guess a good learning or reminder of it is that, life is not certain. There is little to no certainties in life. And so we almost have to just embrace that and recognize that we're going to make the best decisions based on the information we have, the time we have, and we're going to have to allow ourselves to make mistakes and pivot and evolve from it and learn. And there's a good thing to have a little uncertainty in life. Imagine if everything was certain. Life would be pretty boring, I think, right? We certainly wouldn't watch sporting events if we already knew the outcome of the sports of the event. We wouldn't People wouldn't be so enamored with gambling, right? Which is a big thing these days, which I'm not personally a supporter of. But we have some benefit from having uncertainty in life, and it pushes us to try and explore. So there's good parts of it. But obviously, with our relates to our personal finances. Most people want more certainty than uncertainty. Now, there are plenty of people who like to take risk and like to gamble, and that's fine. I'm less on that side of it. But when we're thinking about our finances, that's why we cling to forecasters and experts and sort of prognosticators, because we want to feel like we know what's happening. But the reality is it's really hard to know. And what's that term that the clock always gets to 10 o'clock once or twice a day or something. So you're bound to be right. But the reality is not much is certain. We can hopefully gain a little more intelligence of what might happen, but we don't know. And what it touched on a principle that I really subscribe to and really hits me every day is this Buddhist principle of impermanence. Things are always going to change. Nothing really stays the same, and that's probably a good thing. And the unfortunate reality is we were able to wake up each day and live another day, but there's going to be a day, unfortunately, when that doesn't happen. And so I remind myself every morning, thank goodness for the day, because I woke up. And then the second part is to embrace impermanence, because things will change. Even if I have best laid plans, things will change, and I'm going to have to embrace that or complain about it, right? And hopefully we're going to be on the side of embracing and learning from it and taking a stride and making the most of what's happening. And I was reminded about a year or so ago going to a conference in Utah, and I was sitting at a diner, and I overheard the waitress talking to one of her customers wishing her sister a happy birthday and looking up. And so unfortunately, she went on to say that, well, her sister has passed. And she wishes her a happy birthday on her birthday so that even though she's left this earth, she'll never die. And, it hit me because, talking about impermanence and certainty, like death is definitely down the road for all of us. And we can do things to prolong it and increase longevity, which I think is a good thing. And we can do all we can, but we can't control it completely. And so, what is really been brought to the forefront for me as I age and watching my kids grow and talking about college at the start of this podcast is what our legacy will be and the impact we have. And obviously, a lot of that's focused on today's topic of estate planning, but really legacy is much bigger than that. And it's more than just money, but it's what are you remembered for? And it's interesting that which I don't know if it's actually true. It's not. I don't know if it's documented fully, but Alfred Nobel back in the day when he was him and dynamite, and he was labeled the merchant of death. Like his brother died, and he read in the newspaper that the merchant of death has died, and referring to him, even though it was his brother who died. He said, "This is how I'm going to be remembered, right? This is what people are thinking about me," and so that supposedly spurred the mass wealth that he built to put it to higher use and created a Nobel Peace Prize sort of system that's still in place today. And so he wanted his legacy to be bigger and more impactful and more positive. And so we have to be thinking about those sorts of things because the things we're doing on a daily basis and the things we get to do in our personal and professional lives will likely have an impact to somebody, our family members, our friends, the people we work with, the clients you work with, whomever, like, and for those that it matters, like this is where you do it. You do it on a daily basis to make that impact over long periods of time. And so, to me, how does this fit into wealth building? Well, there's a whole host of ways. So if that is something that's important to you or you've been thinking about it, obviously I've been contemplating a lot of these things more recently, and I've talked to many clients around this that it is important to them, right? So one of a few tips to kind of get you started in thinking about this, if this is something that's interesting to you, is some of it's pretty basic. It's sometimes we just have to get our affairs in order, right? There's certain aspects of our financial lives we can almost feel like we have forever to get to them, right? Because we're so busy in our days and we feel like we're going to live another 30, 40, 50 years. So why do I got to do these things? Well, because we don't know, like that whole concept of impermanence. We don't know when things are going to change and shift very, very quickly without us having any control. So getting your affairs in order, so things like getting your estate plan in place, your wills, your trusts, your powers of attorney, even getting basic things like, all your accounts and your assets, like organized in a way that if you weren't here, your family would be fine, right? They'd be distraught that you weren't here, but they would be able to continue on and manage their lives and certainly have the finances to be able to fulfill anything you wanted for them while you were on this earth. And so that takes some energy and just to kind of unravel and see what's there. And that's really what I would call, taking a sports analogy, the defensive side of the ball. It's the estate plan, the insurances, life insurance, just like all those things that could, if you didn't have those in place, it would cause turmoil potentially for your family after you're gone at a time that it's most painful. It's like adding, insult to injury, right? If you've left this earth and then left a mess after, which I hear often happens, it's like is that the legacy you want to leave for your family? And for the thing that I think most people, when they say what's most important, is their family. And so thinking of them in that's the gift that you can give to them by having these things in order and ensuring that they're going to still be able to thrive, even if you're not here to see it in person. And that's a powerful legacy to leave your family in the time of probably their worst time if something were to happen. And so it's really important to start looking at that broadly to ensure that your financial foundation is strong and can withstand potential changes in life that none of us actually want to happen, but they actually can. The second thing I want you to think about is, and now this goes back to some, the Stephen Covey sort of things as successful people, like thinking about the end in mind, right? When we're thinking about legacy, just like I mentioned the story with the waitress in the restaurant talking to her sister, like, right, how do you want to have people talk about you if you're no longer here? Who do you want to impact and downstream for whatever gifts or skills or interests you have? Like, what is it that you want them to be able to do or say about you or about themselves and how you impacted them. And I think that's something that, on a daily basis, it's easy to lose sight of because you get so busy and you're thinking, okay, am I treating the people in my life that are closest to me in the way that I would want them to remember me, caring, compassionate, or not? Or am I being critical and being a bossy person or whatever it is? Uh, Really, to be honest with yourself, say, is this how you want to be remembered by them, and not have regrets on it? I don't know if you ever read the book The Five Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. Really, really impactful story and information about someone who actually saw a lot of people dying and all the regrets they had in life. And I'll just quickly go through them, and they hit home when you look at them because are we living this way? Are these regrets we might have? And I don't want them, but this is where we got to look ourselves in the mirror and recognize, are we going down this path? So one is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And I look at my son and look at this way. That's what I want for him. I want sons. I want them to live a life that's true to them and their values, what they believe, and what they're passionate about, and how they want to show up in this world, and not sacrifice themselves, right, for somebody else's cause. Second one is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. We can get so enamored in work, especially in this society. It's easy to fall prey to that. I do that occasionally. You need to take breaks and relax and sometimes just be quiet. Working hard can get to be a sort of natural rhythm we get into, but you always have to also recognize you got to treat ourselves right and to give some time for ourselves and other things that are not work related. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. It's just fascinating to think, and I've always personally had this sort of challenge too. Sometimes I bite my tongue. I don't want to get into confrontation, or I don't want to, how I feel is how I feel, and I respect that from more so these days than anything from others, and respect that. But having the courage to say those things is often difficult, and unfortunately, things can fester for long periods of time, problems that never get solved because feelings are never expressed. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. It's quite amazing to think about, some of my friends in my life that are so fortunate to still be in my life, but there's some that haven't. And, I oftentimes can have some regrets on those. So, what do you do about that? And then lastly, I wish I had let myself be happier. And that is one of the most amazing things. I think most people want to be happier and fulfilled. And that's what really life is about. But we can sacrifice so much to get what we assume is success and wealth or whatever it is that we're chasing, um, and give up maybe our happiness. And so that's a trade-off that we all have to come to grips with. But, it's fascinating to think about those things because that really leads us into figuring out, okay, what are we doing now, right? What are we doing that hopefully is enjoyable and fulfilling and leads us down a road that we're not going to have regrets in life, that we can walk off the face of the earth and said, I played my hardest. I left my heart out on the field, as they say in the sports world, right? And I have no regrets, no regrets. Well, that's a hard thing to do, but you got to face those things. So the last thing that kind of hits on that, the last point I'd like to emphasize is, given all that, you can't change everything all at once, and or it could be probably overwhelming. But thinking about and reflecting on things in your life now, whether it be in your personal finances or even just in your business or work environment, one thing that you would want to change, right? Even if it's one step forward from it, right? If you're in a job you dislike, well, okay, well, maybe you can't leave right away because you have bills to pay, you have obligations to meet, you have kids to take care of. That makes all perfect sense. But what is the one thing you could do now to maybe learn about a new area to get into, get educated, right? Learn about a side hustle that you always had maybe a passion to learn about. Whatever the situation, take a step forward in that area that, hey, maybe if I'm sitting here 20 years, 30 years from now, I'm gonna regret not pursuing it, right? Take that first step and it will kind of build and grow from there. I always talk to people about their finances and said, even though if they're not in the best position where they would want to be, I said, you didn't get here overnight. It's not going to be an overnight thing to get you to where you want to get to, and just have the courage and desire to get there. And my gut is you're going to be much closer. So it just takes one step at a time and movement, and be amazed what could happen over long periods of time as long as you're patient and thinking long term. So I hope this was helpful and gives you some inspiration to think about, when we're thinking about our legacies in life, thinking far in advance and how we want to impact others. What can we do today to change that for ourselves and ensure that, the legacy we leave is one that we'll be proud of. We can stand in here and say, we did leave everything out on the field before we graduated from this earth, and we can be proud of what we've done and who we've impacted and how we lived our lives. And that to me is exciting to think about. And it can be done. It just takes some energy and courage. And I'm wishing you the best with that. And certainly anyone who wants to talk about that related to their personal finances around that, I'm more than happy to talk through that with them and then share my experience around it and hopefully help guide you down a path where you can own it yourself and build that future you truly want. So thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you spending time and certainly have resources within my website, Perennial Pride, always there for you to learn and explore for yourself. And look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Perennial Pride podcast. Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.